It was the festive period, and the whole city was alive, bustling with people celebrating and feasting. Amidst the lively crowd, one man stood out, a man eating as though he hadn't seen food in years. A group of onlookers watched in horror, whispering among themselves. "What the hell is going on?" one man exclaimed. "Shouldn't they stop him?" another suggested. They wondered if he won't die from eating that much. And why is he crying while eating such a hearty meal? A man dressed in red chuckled and replied, "It must be his first time seeing him. That's Horin, their famous fat guy." With a sarcastic tone, the man in yellow asked, "Is he famous because of his looks?" The man in red frowned and told him to stop that. He shouldn't judge people by appearances. His comment makes it clear he's not from around here. Curious now, the man in yellow pressed further. "Why is he famous?" The man in red replied, "Because that man Horin did something unprecedented. He unified every merchant union in all of Hanan." The yellow man exclaimed, "What? One man unified the entire merchant guild?" "Yes," the man in red affirmed. "That fat guy is the great merchant who unified all of Hanan. He's Horin of the Sky Merchants Union and our protagonist." Suddenly, his personal nanny rushed forward and yelled at Horin to stop. She said that a normal person eats 3 meals a day, but he eat 3 days worth of food in a single sitting. "Please, stop this madness." She grabbed him by the arm, trying to pull him away from the feast. But Horin, tears streaming down his face, replied, "If he stop eating, those memories, that night, the day of the incident, will haunt him again." Hearing this, Yong, his nanny, softened. She knew the pain he carried from that day. With a heavy heart, she calmed down, recognizing the weight of his grief. As they rode home in their carriage, Horin showed her some expensive jewelry he had collected. He told her that all these riches feel so meaningless now. Yunhwa listened quietly as he continued. "He've been trying to mask a wound that won't heal, with gluttony, with wealth, but the pain of losing those he loved cannot be erased by things. He still have nightmares of that day." Yunhwa told her young master that she'd been with him since childhood, so she knows his pain. With a faint smile, Horin replied, "It's been ages since he left his clan, but she still calls him young master instead of merchant head." Yunhwa smiled back and said, "No matter how much time passes, he will always be the young master of the Tianzong clan to her." As she spoke, Horin noticed something he hadn't before. Yunhwa's face now carried wrinkles, a sign of the years she'd spent by his side. He thought back to how she had followed him even when he left his clan, treating him not as a servant but as family. He touched the scar on his head and remembered the day his clan met its tragic end. Back then, he despised his family, especially his father, who remarried after his mother's death. He hated his father so much that he built a statue, and told the maids to redirect his father to the statue whenever he was summoned. Later, Horin turned his back on his family completely. Though he's the eldest son of the once great Tianzong clan, he felt like a failure. He was sold into an arranged marriage to the Sky Merchants Union. He didn't resist. But a few years later, tragedy struck. The Tianzong clan was attacked by the Dabi sect, a rival faction with a grudge. By the time Horin returned, his clan was in ruins, engulfed in flames. Watching the destruction, he realized how much he hated his father on the surface. But deep down, he also loved his dad dearly. There's a saying that goes, "You only know the value of something once it's gone." Overwhelmed with grief, he smashed his head against the statue he'd built, blaming himself for abandoning them. In the present, Horin turned to Yunhwa and said, "He will change. He'll mend his relationship with his wife and reduce these damn eating habits. He've had enough time to grieve. Now he'll cherish the family he have left." With a smile, he told Yunhwa that she'd been more than a nanny. She's his family. Without her, he wouldn't have survived. Yunhwa smiled warmly and said she will continue to serve him for as long as she lives. Suddenly, before they could say more, a man crashed into their carriage, flipping it upside down. The force scattered everything, throwing them to the ground, causing both of them to lose consciousness for a moment. When he woke, he saw Yunhwa lying motionless. Rushing to her side, he lifted her, but her lifeless body told him everything. The impact had killed her. Overwhelmed by anger and grief, Horin yelled at the heavens. Why? Why this endless misfortune? The chaos was far from over. The man who had collided with their carriage turned out to be a demonic master, fleeing from assassins. Injured and breathing heavily, he cursed the assassins, who showed no mercy. "You dare betray me?" he growled, as 5 assassins surrounded him, stabbing him repeatedly. Bleeding profusely, the demonic master smirked through the pain. "If he die here, he won't be remembered as the demonic master." With a roar, he unleashed his demonic force, slaughtering the assassins in an instant. After killing the assassins, the demonic master was crawling and losing too much blood. His organs were shattered, and he muttered that he needed a new body. He plans to use the spirit possession technique to transfer to a new body, but there was no one around, and he wondered if this was where his journey ended. Suddenly, as he grieved and reflected, a voice called out, "Hey, old man!" It turned out to be Warren. Warren, with tears streaming down his face, yelled that he had lost a family member because she got caught up in the mess. Why did he have to fight here of all places, and not somewhere else? Warren screamed, grabbing the demonic master by the collar. "Say something. My family just died." But suddenly, the demonic master sneered and told him he shouldn't treat an old man like that, and bang, the demonic master's aura shifted. With a changing sinister glow, the master raised his hand and struck Warren on the shoulder, using a precise pressure point attack. Warren collapsed with a loud thud and couldn't move his body. A red demonic aura emanated from the master as he bent toward him. He then said that this is his final moment to use the spirit possession technique. He declared coldly that he needed a young, talented body to continue his life, but since he has no other choice, even the body of a pig will suffice. He began injecting 60 years' worth of martial essence into Warren's body through his left hand. The master then transferred his spirit into Warren's body through his right hand. With a bang, it was done. The demonic master's spirit left his old, frail body and took over Warren's. As he confirmed his success, the master grinned wickedly and pushed his lifeless body away with a hand gesture. "I've done it," he laughed. "I've succeeded." But suddenly, he groaned in pain. He wondered what's happening. He thought, this guy should already be suppressed by his true chi and spiritual power, so what's happening? It was Warren's strong will fighting back. His spirit refused to give in. He cannot die like this, Warren's spirit roared. He must survive and avenge his clan. The demonic master said Warren's strong will is impressive, but futile. His power overshadows the will. The master overwhelmed Warren, whose consciousness began to fade. Just then, one of the assassins who seemed to have survived staggered to his feet. He observed the scene with a smirk. So, the demonic master has transferred bodies? Impressive. Truly worthy of being called the master by the countless demonic sects. However, his parasite of a life ends here. He launched a swift attack toward the demonic master in Warren's body. "Damn it," the master cursed. "The spirit possession technique isn't complete yet." But before he could react, the assassin stabbed him in the neck. Blood gushed from the wound as spiritual force exploded around them. And bang! Everything turned into a blur. In another scene, a boy woke up in a strange room, clutching his head. His headache was unbearable. "Where am I?" He wondered aloud if he's in an apothecary. His throat felt dry, so he reached for water nearby and drank deeply. As he began to feel better, he looked at his hand. In shock, he let out a loud yell and smashed the ceramic cup on the ground. What's wrong with his hands? A young maid rushed into the room, startled by the sound of breaking ceramics. "Young master, are you all right?" she asked, concern in her voice. The boy stared at her, his expression growing more confused. He asked the maid how did she become younger. The maid frowned and asked if the young master had another nightmare. What does he mean, become younger? Warren is now in his younger self. Everything felt like a dream, so he stepped barefoot onto the broken ceramics. The maid gasped, horrified. "Why would he do that? He's going to hurt himself," she exclaimed. Warren groaned as the sharp edges cut into his feet. The pain feels too real, he thought. But this can't be real. Yet, he still couldn't believe what was happening. He still couldn't believe everything that was happening around him. How was he in his younger self? He quickly rushed out to check. An idea sparked in his mind to confirm his suspicions, so he hurried to examine the surroundings. As he was running, he stopped by a statue and said, "This is impossible. Why is this statue still here?" He vividly remembered years ago when his family was destroyed, and in a moment of despair, he had smashed his head against this very statue. But here it stood, completely intact, without a single mark of damage. Trembling, he asked Yonhwa, "This is the statue of him refusing to meet his father. When did he decide to have it placed here?" After a short pause, Yonhwa replied, "It's been about 5 days since he decided to place it here." With tears in his eyes, Warren said, 5 days, right? Then he will find out for himself whether everything that is going on is true or not." With his body radiating determination, Warren used his head to smash the statue, shattering it to pieces. With pain and blood dripping from his head, he said to himself that he's now back in the past, and from now, he had 3 years before the day his clan would fall. With a changing aura and a resolute face, he vowed that he will protect his people and the Tianzong clan. The Tianzong clan was a martial clan located near the Henan Tianzong mountain. Several households had named themselves after the mountain for generations, but the Yong clan had unified them all. The people of Henan called them the Tianzong Yong clan. Those who remembered those times praised the clan. However, over time, the Tianzong Yong clan's fame faded, and they were no longer revered. Now, they were simply known as the Tianzong clan. In another scene, the leader of the Tianzong Yong clan was drinking tea with his wife. He remarked, "It's been 30 years and he still don't understand why their clan hasn't produced any expert martial artists. After Elder Yong Go-san, the supreme dragon of Henan, there hasn't been anyone as strong as the founder of the clan." With a sigh, the clan leader said that everyone considers their clan nothing more than a shadow of its former self. Sadly, they can't even deny that. His wife responded with hope. They should believe that Warren will recover and lead them to a brighter future. After a pause, the clan head replied, "She knows how much Warren hates him. Warren blames him for remarrying too quickly after his mother's death." With a gentle smile, his wife said, "Be patient. Perhaps Warren just needs more time." The clan leader said he thought time would heal their relationship, but it feels like the rift between him and Warren has only grown deeper. 5 days ago, when the clan head visited Warren, his son had placed a statue in the garden and coldly told him to pretend the statue was him instead. During their tense interaction, a maid came rushing in with tears in her eyes, crying out for the clan head. He asked, "Why is she in such a hurry?" The maid, while sobbing, replied that the young master has hurt himself and fallen unconscious. The clan head was shocked and ran with everyone to Warren's room. Meanwhile, our MC, unconscious, was dreaming of his mother. He remembered being at the cascading rapids of a waterfall with her. She had asked if he liked it there, and young Warren, brimming with joy, had said, "Yes, there are so many fish here." He had caught a large fish and proudly showed it to her. But his joy turned to fear as she suddenly collapsed from sheer sickness. After that, her condition only worsened. In his dream, she apologized for not being able to take him to the waterfall anymore. Hugging her tightly, Warren cried. But she reassured him she was okay and told him to stop crying. The sweet memory quickly turned into a horrifying nightmare. His mother's image twisted into that of the demonic master who wanted to take over his body. With a sinister grin, the demonic master declared he will take his head as a treat. The creature lunged at him, but Warren woke up trembling, drenched in sweat. As he looked around, he muttered, "This room feels so familiar, and yet so foreign." This was his childhood room. If he was here, it meant he really had gone back to the past. The same past where he had hated his father and distanced himself from his family. His father, who had died in his first life, betrayed and killed in cold blood, was still alive. Warren clenched his fists. Perhaps this is a second chance. A chance to stop everything that happened before. Since he knows the future, he can change it and can save his clan. Suddenly, he felt an intense surge of energy flowing from his lower dantian. Surprised, he wondered what was happening. Meanwhile, 2 maids were gossiping nearby. One said that the young master actually destroyed the statue by headbutting it. The other scoffed, "No way. The young master has always been bedridden and hasn't even learned martial arts." The maid said she saw it with her own eyes. The young master must be possessed. At that moment, Warren swung the door open with a loud bang. The maids froze wide-eyed, fearing he had heard their gossip or was angry at them. But our MC ignored them entirely. He had more pressing matters to attend to. He said to himself that he was feeling pain and unusually hot. He wondered what was wrong with his body all of a sudden. Suddenly, he felt intense heat radiating from his lower dantian. As hot as he felt, it was as if he needed a woman right now. Around this time in his past life, he would always be locked in his room, struggling to even walk. But now, he could not only move but stand up. This energy he was feeling within him, it was the same energy as that old man, the demonic master. The energy was overwhelming, manifesting as Yang energy. Warren groaned, feeling that the energy was too much for his body to handle. He feared that if he didn't do something about it, he might harm those around him. Determined to protect others, he began running away. The 2 maids yelled after him, telling him not to go outside in his current state and that they would get in trouble if something happened. But Warren didn't listen. He ran at full speed. As he ran, he thought to himself that the old man's energy would consume him if he didn't act fast. Then, with a bang, he jumped into a river. As soon as he entered, the river erupted from the energy radiating from his body. After a while, the cool water began to calm him down. Suddenly, he heard a voice calling his name. It was his father. His father entered the pool and asked, "What are you doing? I know you hate me, but moving about with your weak body on such a cold day, is this how you plan to die?" He also asked about Hwarin's forehead and if he was all right. Deep down, Hwarin missed his father. He missed him so much that he felt like crying. But he knew that acting affectionate suddenly would seem strange and suspicious. So he decided to get closer to his father naturally, step by step. Hugging his father, tears welled up in his eyes as he said, "He's sorry." The clan members watched fearfully, but didn't interfere in the father and son moment. Hwarin then thought to himself, if this is a dream, he hope he never wake up. And if it's an illusion, he hope he never open his eyes. 3 months later, our MC was fishing at a pond with his stepbrother, Kijun. Kijun, while smiling, said it looked like he would win their bet. Hwarin, with a dry laugh, commended him for his fishing skills. Over the past 3 months, Hwarin had grown much closer to his family. In his previous life, he had never spoken to Kijun. Back then, Kijun was learning the clan's secret martial technique, but suffered from a chi blockage, which left him unable to practice martial arts. This caused the Tianzong clan to lose influence and become just a branch of the Yuxi clan. At that time, Hwarin had already married into the Sky Merchants Union. He was so busy that he barely heard about his family's plight until it was too late. Now our MC was determined to change things. Kijun asked if it was okay for him to stop taking the medicine he had been using. Hwarin replied that those medicines were what made him fat. Kijun was surprised and asked, when was he ever fat? Realizing his slip, Hwarin quickly changed the topic, saying he might become fat if he kept taking the drugs. Kijun smiled and said, anyway, he like how brotherly Hwarin been lately, even using bets as an excuse to give him allowances. Then with a playful grin, he added, he caught more fish, so he win the bet, right? But Hwarin scattered the fish into the water, refusing to pay. Kijun yelled, accusing him of cheating. Hwarin laughed and teased, look at this big fish he caught. Then, in a burst of energy, he picked up Kijun and threw both of them into the river. As they cooled off in the water, Hwarin thought to himself how bright Kijun was. In his past life, he had placed too much burden on Kijun, leaving him to carry the family's legacy alone from a young age. Deep down, he was sorry for that. Over the past 2 months, Hwarin had been working hard to train his body, knowing he needed to be fit before starting martial arts. He often worried that the demonic master's energy might surge again, but so far, it hadn't caused trouble. Since that incident, he had developed a habit of meditating under a waterfall every morning to cool his body. One morning as he finished meditating, his younger stepsister Seolan approached with a towel. Hwarin said, "He've told her she don't have to do this." With a smile, Seolan replied, "She liked that they're friends now, and closer than before." Taking the towel, Hwarin thought about how, in his past life, he had never spoken kindly to Kijun, and was mean to Seolan despite her kindness. Seolan had always been active and friendly, often inviting him to festivals. But each time, Hwarin snapped at her, telling her to never ask him again. She had begged him twice to join her at festivals but ended up going alone in tears. The last festival she attended was when she was murdered. Their father investigated her death but was assassinated shortly after. Now, as Hwarin cleaned himself up, he asked Seolan, "Didn't she say the moon festival is today?" Seolan's face lit up with joy. He remembered. She asked if he's really coming with her. With a smile, Hwarin replied, "Of course." They should go shopping for some new clothes first. Seolan agreed and they set off. As they walked, Hwarin thought to himself, this is another precious opportunity. In this life, he won't let the same tragedies happen again. To protect his family and restore the clan's honor, he must become stronger. In the next scene, the disciples of the clan were training, and our MC was among them. He thought to himself that if this were his past life, he would have been in his room by now, drinking herbal medicine and spending his time reading books, isolated from the world. But now everything has changed. Ironically, it seemed all of this was thanks to the energy he gained from the old man. With a smile, he said to himself that he wanted to quickly test his transformed body and muscles. As he was jogging, his father called him. With glee, the father exclaimed that his son had changed so much that he almost didn't recognize him. He praised him, saying that Hwoarin had grown up really well. Feeling shy, our MC told his father that the disciples were watching. The father chuckled and said, "And so?" The clan head then suggested that instead of just focusing on physical training, Hwoarin should formally learn the martial arts of their family. Hwoarin replied that he was thinking the same thing. With a smile, his father replied, "Oh, really? Then he'll assign him an instructor right away." But after a short pause, Hwoarin said he actually had someone in mind already. Surprised, the father asked, "Who might that be?" As they were talking, a figure approached them. It turned out to be Seolin, who hugged Hwoarin tightly. The clan head joked, "This brat doesn't even notice her father anymore. Now all she cares about is her brother." Seolin turned to her father and said, "These are the outfits Hwoarin picked for her." Then she asked their father, "How does she look? Isn't it pretty?" With a smile, the father joked, "She's so cheeky he can't even say anything properly right now." Seolin laughed and said she loved them both. Watching his family with a smile, Hwoarin thought to himself that if his current constitution alone wasn't enough to protect them, then he needed to gain the strength to do so. He resolved to learn martial arts. In another scene, one of the martial masters was training. Her focus was so intense that even a fly wouldn't dare pass by unless it wanted to meet an untimely death. Suddenly, she noticed a presence approaching. This woman turned out to be Yong of the Dragonflower Sword. Noticing the visitor, Yong asked, "Young lord, what brings you to such a humble place?" Bowing slightly, Hwoarin replied, "It's been a long time. Actually, I have a favor to ask." Yong thought to herself that she had heard rumors of Hwoarin's recovery, and it seemed true. However, she had never had a proper conversation with this once slackened young lord. Now, all of a sudden, he was asking for a favor. She asked what kind of favor. Hwoarin responded that he wants to learn swordsmanship from her. She should please accept him as her disciple. Yong was surprised. She thought to herself that a few months ago, she'd heard rumors of the young lord's transformation. While he did seem different, she wondered if a person could truly change so easily overnight. She doubted it. With a sharp turn, she refused, saying, "The secret martial art of the Tianzong sect already keeps her busy with its stagnation." As she walked away, she thought, "I'm sorry, Hwoarin, but a person doesn't change so easily." Our MC, shocked by her refusal, thought to himself, as expected, everyone still sees him as pathetic. He knelt down suddenly, which startled Yong. She turned and yelled, "What is he doing? How can the young lord of the family bow for such a trivial matter?" But Hwoarin insisted and said that this is not trivial to him. He truly need this. Hwoarin recalled how in the past Yong was the most fervent warrior in the battle against the Derby sect, earning her the nickname Dragon Bloodflower. Though not a proud title for a woman, she tirelessly worked to rebuild the Tianzong sect after its near destruction. Tragically, she eventually met a mysterious death, sacrificing her life for her family. This time, Hwoarin vowed he wouldn't let that happen. Neither she nor the Tianzong sect would face such a painful end. Moved by his persistence, Yong finally said, "Fine. She'll accept him as her disciple, but on one condition." She declared that if Hwoarin could touch her body with his sword even once during a duel, she would agree to train him. She also promised not to use internal energy or martial arts during the fight. With a serious tone, she asked, "Do you accept?" Hwoarin hesitated, but he thought to himself, ever since he returned to the past, he'd been training consistently. If that's the case, his body should be strong enough to face a martial master. With a confident smile, he agreed, "Let's duel." A few minutes later, Hwoarin lay on the floor, defeated within seconds. He couldn't even graze her fingertips before being knocked down. Lying there, he wondered if the gap between their skills was truly this vast. Turning to leave, Yong said, "She've won, and she'll be leaving now." But our MC gritting his teeth and yelled, "It's not over yet." He launched another attack, but she evaded and knocked him down again. Despite repeated defeats, Hwoarin refused to give up. He kept attacking, only to be hit back repeatedly. Finally, after countless attempts, he collapsed onto the ground, still clutching his sword. Sitting there, he began to rethink his life choices. Yong looked at him and said that he did well, actually. With a slight bow, she began to leave. But as she was walking away, Hwoarin's aura suddenly changed, flaring up. She noticed the shift in his energy from a distance, and looked back, thinking to herself, what is this red energy emanating from the young lord's body? This isn't the Tianzong sect's martial arts. She wondered, what on earth is this? She yelled for Hwoarin to snap out of it immediately, begging him to regain control. But before she could say more, Hwoarin launched an attack, trying to hit her. She was fast, evading the strike in time, but he didn't stop. He attacked again, and this time it hit, sending her flying backward into a wall. Yong realized the situation was getting serious. This is definitely dangerous, and she have no choice but to counter. She quickly prepared to use Flying Dragon Emperor's sword, first form. But as she was about to unleash her attack, Hwoaran's sword hit her, but to her surprise, his strike wasn't as deadly as she expected. With a smile, Hwoaran told her, "She've been hit, so she must accept him as her disciple now." Then he fainted. Meanwhile, Yong, still in the dark about what had just happened, was shaken. Cold sweat ran down her face as she looked around. The damage from Hwoaran's sword alone had already destroyed part of the building. She thought, what on earth is this? In the next scene, Hwoaran was training on the sect's grounds, while the young lady who had accepted him as a disciple watched him practice. She marveled at how quickly he was improving. In just a few days, Hwoaran had mastered the forms of the Flying Dragon Emperor's sword and the Azure Bamboo sword. She was stunned, thinking that Hwoaran didn't seem suited for martial arts. So how is he doing this? After a while, our MC stopped to catch his breath and asked his master, "What does she think of his training so far?" She responded with a straight face, although he haven't fully grasped the essence of the techniques yet, but he's using the two sword techniques smoothly. Considering how quickly he've mastered them, it's impressive. With a dry laugh, Hwoaran said, "She's flattering him." But as he smiled, Yong couldn't shake the feeling that she was staring at a demon. She said that he's learning martial arts at an unbelievable speed. It's hard to believe that until recently he was in bad health or even bedridden. With a serious expression, Yong asked about that red energy. "Where did it come from?" Hwoaran grumbled and said, "Are they talking about that again? He've already told her that he don't really remember what happened back then she had hit him with her sword so many times." With a sharp turn, Yong said, "Since he refused to explain, she won't ask further. However, as a retainer of the sect, it's her responsibility to monitor his every move from now on." That night, Hwoaran was researching ways to become stronger. As he reflected, he realized that when using the Flying Dragon Emperor sword and the Azure Bamboo technique, he could feel that the Tianzong sect's martial arts were incomplete. It makes sense, he thought. The martial arts of the Tianzong sect originally came from demonic arts a long time ago. The founder of the sect, a chivalrous warrior from Henan, had learned two demonic arts from a protector of the hidden sacred sect. Neither orthodox nor demonic, these techniques were modified over time. During the modification process, the power of these techniques had been greatly reduced. But even with that, the greatest swordsman of Henan was born. However, that was the limit. Using demonic arts with an orthodox mindset had led to incomplete martial arts. Although the founder had reached the pinnacle, he couldn't achieve transcendence. The founder kept the origins of these martial arts a secret, but as time passed, the truth was revealed. This led to the destruction of the sect 3 years from now. After other sects discovered their martial arts had demonic origins, they came to annihilate the Tianzong sect. But since Hwoaran has experienced the future, he has a way of completing the clan's martial arts, and he's the only one who can do it now. In the next scene, Hwoaran spoke to his father, telling him he planned to visit the Zuge family. His father was surprised and asked, "Why visit the Zuge family now?" Our MC explained that since he had regained his health through martial arts, it seemed appropriate to visit them, especially since he was betrothed to their daughter. His father replied, "Time really flies." Even before Hwoaran was born, his betrothal to the Zuge family was arranged. Their daughter, Yong, is known to be an extraordinary beauty. They'll be happy if Hwoaran visit them. The head of the clan then asks him when he plans to leave, but his wife tells him that it hasn't been long since Hwoaran regained his health, so she thinks it would be better to wait a bit longer before sending him to visit the betrothed family. With a smile, the head of the clan said that Hwoaran is now of age, and it's time for him to travel and make friends. His wife agrees, saying she understands and will follow his command. Given that the journey will take over a month, she insists he needs a strong escort to protect him. In the next scene, it's time to head to the Zuge family, and the escort among them is Master Yong, who stands there with a frown and no smile. Hwoaran greets her and asks, who are the two people behind her? The large guy among them stepped forward and tapped our MC on the shoulder, shaking his bones. The other man grabbed his leg to see if they are strong enough. After shaking for a while, the man in the green cape says that Hwoaran's leg may not be big, but it's firm. They introduce themselves as the twin sword demons, and Hwoaran said he looks forward to working with them. With a dry laugh, The large guy says it's nothing, and that they will do their best to protect him. The twin sword demons, Jeon-wook and Nam-wook, have rough appearances but are skilled swordsmen worthy of the title sword demons. Hwoarin said to himself that his father must have been very thoughtful to send such swordmasters with him on the journey. He then tells them that he will decide the route for the journey, and he hopes they'll follow without complaints. After a short pause, Jeon-wook replied, "Of course, they will never disobey the young lord." Now they were all set and were about leaving. With tears in her eyes, Seolin asked Hwoarin if he really has to go. He patted her on the head and said he's sorry, but he promised to go with her whenever she wants during the central festival. Upon hearing this, her face lighted up with glee. Then he taps Ki-jun on the shoulder, telling him that while he's away, he's counting on him to take care of the family. With a smile, Ki-jun replies that he shouldn't worry and will protect the family with his life. Hwoarin bids farewell to his father and stepmother, saying he shall now leave. Afterward, they depart, but as they were leaving, a voice calls out, asking him to wait a moment. As the figure approaches, our MC recalls a similar memory from his past life, when Yeonhwa had run to him, begging him to take her along. Now, in his current life, a similar situation unfolds. Jeon-wook told Hwoarin that he must refuse. A maid accompanying them would just be a burden. Hwoarin came down from his horse and walked towards Yeonhwa. She thought he wants to hit her, fearing a slap. She apologizes quickly, saying she's sorry. But instead, he surprises her with a hug. He tells Yeonhwa that she has always stayed by his side, and he's grateful for that. However, this path he's taking is very dangerous, and the journey is far. He can't take her with him right now because he doesn't want to put her in danger. He said she is an important part of the family, and upon hearing this, Yeonhwa agrees. With tears in her eyes, she says she'll wait with his father and mother just a little longer. Hwoarin then bid her goodbye and they set off on the journey. As they travel, our MC reflects that when he returns to the Tianzong sect, many things will have changed. He will protect his family and prevent the destruction of his clan, starting with perfecting the incomplete martial arts of their clan. As they continue, Hwoarin apologizes to his father, explaining that the Zuge family is just an excuse. He's not actually going there to visit his betrothed right now. The true journey to protect his family lies in perfecting the incomplete martial arts of their clan, which can only be achieved on Mount Wudong. The Zuge family is located near Mount Wudong, which is why he told his father he was going there. So, they're actually headed to Mount Wudong.